we're ready to do the third demo for the December demo projects, and this one is going to be a long one because it's on the actual construction of the free poinsettia jar topper design. So just remember, if you've commented under all three videos, you'll get the design free. If you are going to come into the store to get the design, be sure and bring a USB stick, or if you need us to email it to you, just call the store and give us your email. Now, here a week or so ago, I sent out an email that talked about the demo and said that we were going to be doing up a few kits, and so we do have some left. So if you do want a kit, if you haven't pre-ordered it yet, you can call the store and do that. The kits are $5, and that's all. So we'll get started. Okay, so what you're going to need will be first, the aqua mesh. Okay, so this is just the regular water-soluble stabilizer, and I've got that hooped in the 5x7 hoop. Then, and that'll be for the first part of the design. Then for the second part of the design, you'll need just the regular poly mesh or the lightweight mesh stabilizer. And if you're doing the smaller, the regular mouth jar, that can be done in your 4x4 hoop, or if you're doing the wide mouth jar, it needs to be done in the 5x7. Then you also need, for both of them, the water-soluble topping or the Stitch 2.0, and just cut you two pieces that are about 5.5 by 5.5. And then your kit, if you did get a kit, it's going to have your flex foam, the base for the jar, and then the felt and all. Now, because we're kind of running low on the velveteen, I'm using felt for all of mine here, or string. But in your kit, you may even have, we're kind of trying to conserve the velveteen, you may have a piece of velveteen for your top leaf, and then for the back of the hoop you may have a piece of felt. So we're kind of trying to stretch our velveteen to get more kits cut. Then you'll need your Kimberbell tape, your scissors, and then your thread. You want a bobbin wound with the different colors, and then I have white, and I have a white pre-wound for that. And I'm going to try to tell you what colors I used. And so for the gold, that'll be kind of the inside of the poinsettia, I'm using color 0704. Then for the green, for the petals, because I want the stitching to kind of show up on the felt, so I'm using color number 0463. The red is just the good red, 1902. Then white, and then this color, I lost the sticker on the top of it, so I was going to show you this little trick. If you, as soon as you buy your spools of Isacord thread, if you'll write the number down here on the bottom of it with a Sharpie, that way it's bigger and you can see it easier. And if your sticker does happen to fall off once your spool starts getting low, because these spools last a long time, and so after a few years you might lose your sticker. So this one is 1921, and this is the one I'm going to do on the felt petals, the top petals, because it does the little detail inside them, and again I want it to show up on the red felt. And so that's it as far as supplies for right now. You will need a glue gun also for later. Now we'll start stitching. Okay, so on your USB stick, you're going to have 4 designs. So the first 2 are for the regular mouth, so that would be the smaller, and that's the one I'm doing because our jar is the smaller mouth. And then you have the ones for the wide mouth. So the design we're going to bring up first is going to be the one that has all 3, the little leaf and then the poinsettia petals. I guess those are actually technically leaves also. And so we're going to send that to the embroidery screen, and I've gone ahead and I've threaded up with the green in my top and the green in my bobbin. And what it's going to stitch first is just the placement line for all of our pieces of felt. Okay, so it's stitched the placement line, and you have a little map on your instructions. So, oh man, I cut off the instructions, so don't know what page we're on. This page right here where it's talking about two-part project. Right here on step 3, it's telling you which square is for what. So it's the leaf that's on the right, then petal A, then petal B. So this is going to be the green felt, the smaller piece of felt, and then if you do have the piece of velveteen, the piece of velveteen right there. So we're going to take our piece of green felt and lay it over that box on the right hand side, and then it's going to stitch the little tack down and all the little detail on the inside of the leaf. Okay, so it's stitched the leaf. Now what it's going to do is the smaller piece of felt over here, and I've gone ahead and I've threaded up with my, I'm going to call detail color, so it's kind of the pinkish reddish color. I don't know what color that would be. And I have that in the top and the bobbin. It does say in the instructions, make sure that your felt, your green felt, doesn't overlap the placement area here, and mine doesn't. And so I'm just going to lay that red felt down over that and stitch the place or the tack down and the little detail on the felt. And so when it's done doing this, we will come back. And I like that. It has just enough contrast that it shows up good. So now what we're going to do is take the piece of velveteen, and that's not overlapping, so I guess we're okay. So we're going to take, if yours is the velveteen, you're going to lay that here on top of the hoop, and then go ahead and tape that down in a couple of places. Then we're going to turn the hoop over, and if you have a second piece of velveteen, it will be placed on the back side here. If you have your second piece is the piece of felt, because we're conserving velveteen, you're going to put that on the back side and just cover up, so it's covering up that bottom poinsettia leaf pattern. And tape it down, and then turn the hoop back, and I've threaded up with the red, so I have the red that matches my felt or the velveteen top and bottom bobbin, and it's going to stitch a little tack down to hold those two pieces together. After it stitches the tack down, it's going to go in and stitch the little detail on these petals. And if you wanted to, you could change back to that other color, the 1921, if you wanted it to stand out a little bit more. On these, I'm going to go ahead and do the red. So I still have the red top and bobbin. And we'll stitch the little detail. And what we're going to do now is, after it stitches the detail, just remove your tape, and we're going to trim these two petals down, so the ones that are on the velveteen or the bigger piece of felt. And so just go around it with your scissors, clip right up next to your stitches. These you want to trim next to your stitches because it is going to come back with a satin stitch around them. And we're going to trim both sides. So after I get done trimming the top, and you have a big petal and a small petal, we're going to trim the top layer, then you're going to turn the hoop over and you'll trim the bottom layer and clip any of your little jump threads here. And so when I'm done trimming, we will come back. Okay, I've got it trimmed down on the front side and the back side, and so now we just have put the hoop back on. I still have the red thread top and bobbin, and it's going to stitch the satin stitch around both petals. So this will take a little bit. It says it's going to take 6 minutes, so we'll be back. Okay, the last thing it's going to stitch out are the little seed things in the middle of the petals here, and so I've threaded up with the yellow top and bobbin, and we'll let that stitch out. And I think it just does those. This will be the little petal that's on the very top, and so it just does the little seeds on that one. Okay, it's finished stitching this part of the design. And so what we're going to do now, unhoop it, and then we're going to trim these two petals, well, kind of go in and cut them apart. And these two we're going to trim down, and it says about 1/4 of an inch away because this is the water soluble stabilizer. And when we go to wash these out, the stabilizer out, we are going to get everything wet, pretty wet, because we want to be able to form the petals and kind of shape them. So we want that stabilizer not to just, disappear around the outside edges. We want to actually get it to dissolve in the middle of the petals so that we can kind of shape them and all. So we'll just kind of do a rough cut on those two. And then on the smaller petal with the felt and the leaf, you're just going to trim both the stabilizer and the felt about 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to be more careful on these. Trim about 1/8 of an inch away from that tack down stitching, and then we'll do the same thing. We'll get these completely wet so that we can shape them also. So I will finish cutting everything out, and then we'll go soak them. Okay, so I'm just gonna put it under kind of cool, tepid water and just kind of get that to start dissolving and get it to kind of just turn gummy. And then once it starts turning gummy, that's when we're just gonna leave it. So you want it to be kind of sticky back there on the back. Wring out the excess, and then same thing on these. And see, then we can kind of form them, shape them how we want them. And then on these that have it here on the outside, just get it wet until that starts dissolving and getting gummy. And then we'll just lay these, we'll kind of shape them the way we want them, lay them to dry, and then once they're dry, we'll come back and we'll do the second part of the design. So like on these, I'm just gonna kind of turn the water off, hold them up like that, and maybe curl 1 or 2 petals down and let them dry like that. So we are now on the page that says Part 2, Stitching the Base and Assembling the Project. And so our pieces of felt and all our flower petals and leaf are dry. And then I've gone back on the USB stick, and since I'm doing the smaller size, the regular mouth jars, I'm going to pull up this design. And I've hooped up in my 4x4 hoop a piece of the just regular poly mesh stabilizer. And what it's going to stitch first is a placement line for our piece of fabric. Okay, and I'm just going to lay the fabric down over that, and it's going to stitch the tack down. And it's going to go around it several times and does like a little decorative little stitch on the outside. And there's a note that says after it does this, you're not going to trim the fabric. Oh, it's little Christmas trees. So when it's done stitching the little Christmas trees and all, we'll come back. Okay, the next thing it's going to stitch off is a placement line for our flex foam. And so I've gone ahead and I've threaded up with kind of the pinky red color, because that's what's the color I want to stitch the little details on the petal. And so I'm just going to go ahead and stitch the placement line and the tack down for our flex foam in that same color. So then I don't have to rethread, and I'll be able to see my stitches a little bit better on the flex foam. Lay the flex foam down and then stitch the tack down. You want to watch this flex foam and make sure your foot is sitting high enough above it that it's going to feed and move properly, because if it doesn't, you'll need to go in and raise your presser foot height. But that looks good. And with that brighter color thread, I can see a little bit better where I need to trim it down. And then I'm just going to take my scissors and trim the flex foam down. Be careful and don't cut your fabric up underneath there, and try to get as close as you can without cutting your stitches. If you kind of hold your scissors kind of up like that, that kind of helps, because it keeps the cutting blade from coming down right on top of your stitches. Kind of hold it up like that a little bit. We can come back when I'm done cutting. Okay, what it's going to stitch next after you trim the flex foam is a placement line for the last piece of felt. And then this is where, when we start building, this is where we're going to need these two pieces of the Stitch 2.0, the water-soluble topping, in a minute. So now we'll lay our piece of felt down over that, and it's going to stitch the tack down. And it's going to make these little leaves poofy. It's like this. After it stitches the tack down and everything, I'm going to go through, I don't want to lose my topping here, I'm going to trim the felt down, and you just want to trim it about 1/8 of an inch away from the stitching line. And this one has a lot of little petals we're going to go around, so we'll come back when I'm done. Are you zoomed in? Okay. After I trim the felt down, what it's going to stitch next is a placement line for the leaf, and then a little kind of like registration mark for our first layer of petals. You could stitch this off in the same color red, but I'm going to go ahead and stitch them off in white just so you can see them a little bit better in the camera. So it's just going to do the little placement lines first. Or that's doing the registration mark first. Okay, we're going to lay the leaf down first. I'm going to get rid of that little thread. Okay, so the end of the leaf is going to lay over that kind of V shape registration mark or placement line, and then I'm going to go ahead and kind of tape that down here, and it's going to stitch across it. I'm going to kind of hold that down. So after it stitches the leaf, down, what we're going to do is take the larger leaf design that has the satin stitch around it. So if you have the velveteen, this would be the velveteen, and mine's felt. But see how when it's stitched this, there's like a backwards L there, and then there's a backwards L on the leaf pattern. So you're gonna make sure those are going the same direction, then you're gonna lay that down on top of it. And you could tape this down, but then you also, one of the pieces of topping, this is just kind of a precautionary topping just in case your foot might catch on the thickness and all here. So I'm gonna tape it down on both sides, and then it's going to stitch a little tack down right there in the center. I'm gonna kind of watch the foot and see if at this point we might need to raise the presser foot height a little bit. Yeah, I think, well, don't know. Let's see if it catches. I'm gonna hold it. It's getting thick. Okay. Now, it went ahead and perforated that topping, so I'm going to go ahead and tear this layer off. Get that out of there. Clip that thread. Now we're going to take the felt layer, and it has the little registration mark on it also. It's going like that. And so we're going to line it up like that. And then I'm just going to use the same piece of topping and just move it over a little bit. And now, here, I think I am going to go in and raise that presser foot height because that's getting really thick. To that. Okay, so I'm going to go into the settings of the machine and embroidery foot height. I'm going to bump that up to, we'll try that. It's always a guess on this height. I'm going to leave it there so in case I need to raise it up a little bit higher. And what I could do is instead of just running the machine, pushing the start button, I could just sit here and hold that start button in, and it's going to go slow. Real slow. But that way I have a little bit more control over it. If I let go of this button, it's going to take off and go fast, and then I have to push it again to make it stop, but I like having a little bit of control. Yeah, I think it's thick right there. And it's done. We have to have that jingle to tell us we're done. Okay, so now we're gonna tear that away. Get that off. We're gonna unhoop it. And then we're gonna trim the fabric and the stabilizer right next to the outside stitches here. I don't know where my big scissors went. And I'm just clipping right to the outside. Just careful and don't cut into your felt leaves or anything, or the leaf as I get over here to this side will go underneath it. Raise that up. Okay. Now we still have one little petal here, and it is just glued on top. So I'm just going to get the hot glue gun and glue it on top like that. And then we've got to go find our jar and put it on top of the jar. Okay, so I'm just going to take the glue gun and put a little dollop there, and then stick that down and let it dry. And somebody asked about my glue gun tray, and it's a Frisbee, so it works pretty good to contain all the glue. Okay, then we have our ring and our top, right? Lid and our top ring. Then I like to go ahead and put a little bit of glue on the lid, this flat part, just to kind of help hold it down while we're putting it together. And so just center that in your circle there and let it dry. And then take your ring, and you've got to get all your little dimensional petals out of there. Is that one dimensional? Okay, the ones on the bottom are stitched down, so just the top 3 layers and the leaf. Just manhandle it a little. There we go. Did I get all of them? There we go. How cute. So pretty. And then we can attach it to our jar. And it'll make a cute little gift. Pretty cute.